I'm Rob Holden. I'm standing as the independent candidate in the Calder Valley. We've had a number of questions that have come through, thick and fast in fact, and one of the main ones is regarding flooding and flood alleviation, as you'd probably expect in the Calder Valley. Now, most people will hopefully know that I've been heavily involved in flood alleviation since 2012, where I set a Facebook group up which aimed to put people who wanted to volunteer and help those who'd been affected by flooding in touch with those who'd been pretty much devastated by flooding. And it worked really well, and that was how I got into politics and went from there really. But ever since that point, I have worked really hard to get the Calder Valley as much funding as possible and to make sure that money's being spent correctly. Now, Boxing Day 2015, everyone knows what happened. We had the worst flooding in living history, and lives were devastated. It's no underestimation. Lives were devastated from Walsden in Todmorden all the way through to Brighouse, and people lost their home properties, they lost businesses. It was absolutely dreadful. I don't need to tell you how bad it was because we all know how bad it was. So imagine my surprise when I found out that 11 days later, down in London at Westminster, they were discussing increasing flood funding by £180 million a year. Now that's a national figure which would have been spread right across the worst hit zones. But what I found even more shocking was the fact that our MP at the time, Craig Whitaker, voted against increasing that funding. 11 days, people were still clearing out their houses of silt and sewerage and rubbish and losing most of the possessions, and yet our MP, who is there to represent our community, voted against additional funding which would help to protect the people's lives and businesses in the Calder Valley from Todmorden through to Brighouse. Is that someone we need representing our views in Westminster? Personally, I don't think it is. I can't understand his reasoning behind it. The only thing I can think that is, he was keeping his bosses sweet. Is that what we need? No, it's not. If elected, I will continue to campaign for the money that we need to further protect the Calder Valley. It's estimated that we need an additional £50 million on top of what we've already been allocated from the government. Now, that 50 million isn't going to come easily, and so we need someone in Westminster who is actually prepared to make a song and dance about getting that money. It's not going to be handed to us on a plate, and it's obvious that Craig Whitaker isn't going to fight for it. He's already voted against additional funding. So all I can ask is that you really do consider voting for me when it comes to June the 8th, because I will fight for that money.